If you've never had homemade donuts straight from your kitchen, then you're seriously missing out. But you're in luck because today I'll be sharing my easy donut recipe that's super simple to follow and turns out soft and fluffy every time. To start, you're going to need some warm milk. You can also use water if you prefer, but milk makes it richer. Go ahead and add instant yeast, then add a little bit of sugar. Give it a quick whisk, then let it sit for a couple of minutes until the yeast is nice and foamy. This step isn't always necessary, but it's a good way to make sure your yeast is active. Next, add the sugar and then 1 egg. Add vanilla extract if you have some, then bread flour and salt. Make sure the salt goes on top of the flour and not directly into the yeast mixture because that can affect how the yeast works. Next, using the dough hook attachment of your stand mixer, mix until it comes together. If you don't have a stand mixer, I'll also show you how to make the dough by hand at the end of the video. Once the dough comes together, go ahead and add the butter. So we don't add the butter at the beginning because we'll want the gluten to develop first, and butter can slow that process down. So for soft stretchy doughs like breads and donuts, always mix your dough first before adding the butter. Continue mixing the dough for about 5 to 6 minutes until it's smooth and stretchy. To check if the dough is ready or well kneaded, you can do the window pane test by gently stretching out a small piece of the dough, and you should be able to see light or your fingers through it without it tearing easily. Once it's ready, take out the dough, then transfer to a lightly oiled bowl. Cover and let it rest for about 1 hour or until it's doubled in size. Usually, the warmer your kitchen, the faster it will rise, so you can place it in a turned-off oven or microwave. Covering the dough with a plastic wrap also helps it rise faster. Once the dough has doubled in size, transfer to a well-floured work surface so it doesn't stick after cutting. Next, using your hands, just gently press the dough down to remove some of the trapped air bubbles. Then, using a rolling pin, roll it down slightly. I like to keep mine on the thicker side because I really like thick and fluffy donuts, but if you prefer smaller donuts, you can roll it down thinner. Now it's time to cut the donuts. If you have a donut cutter, go ahead and use that, or you can use any round cutter. You will need one large one and one small one. A cup or a small bowl would work as well, and don't forget to dip your cutter in flour before cutting so it doesn't stick and you get nice clean edges. Remove the excess dough and set it aside. Then use a smaller cutter to cut out the centers. You can also use the tip of a water bottle if you don't have a cutter or any round object. And again, don't forget to dip the cutter in flour so it doesn't stick. Take the centers out and save that for the donut holes. One extra step, I like to lightly dip my donut in flour before placing them on the parchment paper. The flour helps prevent sticking and it keeps the donut from absorbing too much oil when frying. It also just gives the donut a cleaner, neater look. And the parchment paper just makes them easier to transfer, especially when frying. If you don't have parchment paper, just make sure your tray is well floured before placing the donuts to rest. Next, gather the remaining dough, then press it together. Just knead a little with your hands, then roll it out again. So you'll notice that the dough might start springing back and be a bit harder to roll the second or third time. If it's springing back too much, just let it rest for a few minutes so the gluten can relax. And while it's resting, cover with a plastic wrap or a clean kitchen towel so it doesn't dry out. After a few minutes, you'll notice the dough is much easier to roll, so just keep rolling and cutting until you've used up everything. You can also use the leftover small scraps to make more donut holes. To do so, just cut them into smaller pieces, then roll them into tiny balls and place on a tray to rise. Another way to shape the donuts, and this is actually my preferred method, is to divide the dough first into portions before shaping. So this method doesn't need any donut cutter and it gives you neater, more even and perfectly round donuts. For this method, once the dough has doubled in size, cut it into smaller pieces. If you have a kitchen scale, you can weigh each one for more uniform donuts. I usually go for around 75 grams per donut. Next, roll each piece into a dough ball just like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, just roll it as round as you can. Dip each one in flour, then shake the excess flour off. Now just gently press each dough with your hands or any flat surface like the back of a plate or cup. You want to flatten it just a little bit, but not too much. Cut out the centers using any small round object, and don't forget to dip it first in flour so it doesn't stick. If you don't have any small cutter, you can just poke a hole using your fingers and gently stretch it out. The only downside to this method is that you won't get any donut holes. Now that the donuts are shaped, place them in a warm spot and let them rise again until doubled in size. You will know they're ready when you press on it gently and it slowly springs back up. If it springs back up too quickly, it means they are underproofed and you need to leave them for a bit longer. But if it doesn't spring back at all and leaves a dent, they are slightly overproofed. And don't worry, if it's slightly overproofed, it will still turn out fine. The donut might just be a bit more airy. To fry, heat up your oil in a wide pot or wok. I usually aim for around 330 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 165 degrees Celsius. If you have a food thermometer, you can use that to test the oil, or you can test by placing a donut hole. If the donut hole starts to sizzle gently, it means your oil is hot enough, but if it browns almost immediately, it means the oil is too hot. Once the oil is ready, gently transfer the donuts using the parchment paper. Also, make sure you don't overcrowd the pan when frying, so leave enough room so they can turn easily and fry properly. Overcrowding can also make your donuts too oily. Fry for about 2 minutes, then flip, then let the other side fry for an additional 2 minutes. This is the second batch of donuts, the one we made without the cutter, and you can see how much more round and even they are compared to the cut ones. When they're done, get them out using a slotted spoon. Make sure you do it one donut at a time because they can dent easily while hot. Transfer to a tray lined with paper towel to get rid of any excess oil. Don't forget the donut holes, so they can be a bit tricky to fry because they're so hard to turn, especially when one side browns first. So just keep moving them around in the oil to make sure it browns evenly on all sides. Now that the donuts are ready, it's time to coat them. Let them cool slightly first, then just toss in sugar. You can also add a little cinnamon to make cinnamon sugar donuts. If you prefer glazed donuts, then dip them in a simple glaze, which is just powdered sugar and a little milk. I'll be sharing my glazed donut recipe very soon, so keep an eye out for that. All that's left to do is to enjoy your warm, fluffy donuts. You can find the full written printable recipe on my website, kikifoodies.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I post a new recipe. Before we wrap it up, I wanted to quickly show how to make the dough without a stand mixer, just like I promised. To start, grab a large bowl and add your milk and yeast just like before. Let it sit for a few minutes until the yeast blooms. Then add the egg, sugar, vanilla extract and give everything a good mix. The most accurate way to measure flour is with a kitchen scale, but if you don't have one, this is how I do it. Don't scoop straight from the bag or bowl. What you do instead is spoon the flour into your measuring cup so it stays light, then level it off with a knife. Add the measured flour and salt, then using a spatula or wooden spoon, mix everything together. It's always easier to start mixing in the bowl first because the dough is a bit sticky, so just use your clean hands to knead until the dough is stretchy. Add the butter, then keep kneading for a couple more minutes until everything comes together. Just so you're ready, it can be a bit of a workout, so if your hands get tired, just cover the dough, let it rest for a few minutes. When you're ready, come back to it and continue kneading. Next, transfer the dough to a well-floured surface like a countertop and keep kneading. The dough is going to be more stable now, so it will be easier to work with. Keep kneading by stretching out the dough and folding it back in. You want to do this for about 20 minutes, and I know it can be a bit of a workout. So again, if your hands get tired, just cover the dough, let it rest for a few minutes, then come back to it when you're ready. Add a little flour if needed, but make sure you don't add too much flour so you don't end up with a dense dough and a dense donut. Knead until the dough is smooth or smooth enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. Most likely it won't be as smooth compared to when you use a stand mixer. Just do the best you can. You will know the dough is ready when you can stretch it gently without it tearing easily. When you're done, shape the dough into a dough ball and transfer to a lightly oiled bowl so it doesn't dry out. Cover with plastic wrap and a clean kitchen towel, then place in a warm spot to rise. And that's how you knead your dough by hand. That's all for today. Let me know if you try this recipe, and again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.